Welcome to DNA Hardwired, common sense turned upside down. My name is Pop, and with me is my co-host, Nikki.
Hello.
We are very excited to share with you our thoughts, opinions, beliefs, and yes, facts on everyday topics that make us question people's common sense. Hopefully, you will share your thoughts, opinions, beliefs, and facts on everyday common sense topics, and together, we can answer the age-old question of why so many people don't exercise common sense on many of the common sense topics of the day. Hopefully, you've listened to the first episode, part one of this podcast, in order for you to have a solid understanding of what this podcast is all about and how to get the full benefit of this podcast. If you haven't, I would strongly recommend and encourage and suggest you listen to episode 1, Common Sense Part 1, before listening to this or any of the other episodes. At this time, we would like to make it clear this is not a therapy podcast in the typical sense of medical or mental therapy. My co-host Nikki and I are not PhDs or MDs or any other kind of Ds. The information and discussions we are providing can be therapeutic in nature, but are for situational and problem-solving situations. If you believe your situation or problem is serious, we strongly encourage and recommend you seek medical or psychological help. What are your thoughts, Nikki? You got anything to add?
No, I think you pretty much covered it all. Again, we would like to reiterate, if you need any type of other care, please seek medical care. There's nothing wrong with a good therapist or a psychiatrist or psychologist, or an internal medicine doctor, whatever you need to seek out any kind of care. We strongly encourage that.
Okay. Thank you for joining us, and let's get started. This is episode 2, part 1 of relationships. Our definition of relationships is two or more people connected and relating to each other. There really are many types of relationships. There's 5 main ones, the most common ones. They're dating relationships, marital, friendship, family, and work. We're not going to try to cover all of these relationships. We're going to discuss 2 of the most common types of relationships, which is dating and marital relationships. So what we're going to do in this episode, we're going to look at the dating relationship. We'll look at the dating relationship first. And if you haven't caught on by now, I like to give a definition of certain topics that we'll be talking about. So a dating relationship is defined as a stage of a romantic relationship in humans whereby 2 people meet generally with the aim of each assessing the other's suitability as a prospective partner in a close and intimate relationship. It is usually a form of courtship consisting of social activities done by the couple, either alone or with others. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, approximately 50% of the population over 40 are single, with 49% of those singles being female and approximately 51% being male. It's unlikely that the dating pool is thin due to a lack of single people. There's a ton of single people out there. A lot of times you hear people say that there's not enough people out there to date, but according to the statistics, there's well more than enough people out there for you to date and meet. Nikki, what do you think are some reasons that people date?
I think there's various reasons people date. I think off the top, there's a few that I can just kind of think of. I think for companionship, who wants to go to movies alone all the time? There's nothing wrong with going to movies alone on occasion, But I think it's nice to have, companionship to do things when you want to be around others. Just for fun, hanging out with people, engaging with people can be, really fun. And I think it's a healthy thing to do as well. I think for sex or intimacy, I think for socializing, again.
Let me stop you for a second.
Okay.
I noticed that you kind of ran together sex and intimacy.
Okay.
And I think sometimes we get those two things confused.
No, they're not the same.
No, they're definitely not the same.
They are not the same.
Yeah,
no.
I want to
No,
make sure that we all
Yes,
understand that just because you're intimate with someone doesn't
Yes,
mean that there's
it's
some
sexual.
sex stuff
That
going
is-
on.
That is correct. So,
All right.
yes.
Sorry to interrupt you.
It's okay. No, I know those are two very different, that we could have a whole podcast on each one of those
Yes.
individually. So
Yes.
no, they are not the same.
Right.
Thanks for interrupting. Okay, back to what I was saying.
No, usually people don't say thank you for interrupting me.
Yeah,
but,
well, I'm polite.
But thank you for thanking me.
Of course. Socialization is another reason. Helping to find the right mate, helping to find that right person, and preparing for marriage. If you want to get married, oftentimes we date. And the last episode we talked briefly, and it wasn't about dating, but we did briefly bring up dating in Saudi Arabia. I think that it was, and we were talking about arranged marriages. Mm-hmm. But from my understanding, even in those type of situations, there is still a dating period.
Yes.
It may not be as long or in depth, but there still is a dating period in that time, preparing that couple for marriage. So I think, it would probably be wise to determine what type of relationship, though, I think one is looking for at the beginning of a relationship, if we hope or want that relationship to, to be successful. So I think we need to have a basic understanding of, hey, what am I looking for? Am I looking for marriage?
Fun,
sex, intimacy, socialization, companionship. Do I want to be married?
Yes.
So I do think it's important for you to know what you're looking for when you're out there in them dating streets, as I like to say. Again, you don't even have to necessarily have that stated on date one, but I do think it's important to have a baseline for you to at least know what you want or what you're expecting out of that relationship. So it makes it a little bit more clear. Many times dating relationships do fail due to the different desires or goals for that relationship, and people are not being honest up front. And again, if you know what you want going into that relationship, then I think relationships may be a little bit more successful because the goal of the relationship is established. If I'm preparing for marriage, but I'm dating somebody that never wants to get married, but they do want a companionship, but they never want to get married, then our goals aren't aligned. And so it may be doomed to, fail. Dating is the stage in a romantic relationship where decisions to move to the next step, typically marriage, is usually decided. But again, we have to kind of know what if our goals align. Common sense wise, though, the high divorce rate of approximately 1 out of every 2 marriages ending in divorce would indicate that we don't do a good job in assessing our the suitability for like a long-term, partner before marriage. Like, we're not really, is this person suitable to what we want? Are we bad pickers? Are we not really, accurately kind of picking, what we want? Is this person suitable?
I like that term.
Bad picker?
Bad pickers.
Bad
That's
picker.
a good one.
Yeah, bad. I think I heard that from someplace. Yeah.
I'm going to have to use that one.
Yes, because we're not really assessing, is this person suitable to be a long-time partner, before marriage,
We probably need to do a podcast on that.
Yes. Are we a bad picker?
Yeah.
Or not, you know? I also think that out of marriages that don't end divorce, there is definitely a large number that should not be considered as successful marriages.
I know a lot of those people.
Yeah, just because a marriage people are still married does not mean it's successful. It just literally means that they are married.
Right.
And there are married people that are technically legally married but are living two individual lives. So
right.
What marriage looks like and what that means, is another thing as well. And then there are many marriages that are failures due to their dysfunction. So if the relationship is not functioning well, it is going to increase the actual number of quote unquote failed marriages. The term failed, people look at, divorce as a failure. And that's kind of a sticky term, but that's the term that people use, failed, a failure, but I don't necessarily would say it's a failure per se, but that's kind of how we look at it. So Pop, are there stages to dating? And if so, what are those just kind of basic stages would you say there are to dating?
Yes, I think that there are dating stages. There's 5 basic dating stages, and the first stage is the stage of attraction. This is the stage in dating that usually determines if the relationship will develop into something more. There has to be an attraction in order for the relationship to develop into something romantic. I got a question for you. Since we're talking about attraction, do you think a dating attraction has to be physical?
That's kind of a loaded question there, Pop. But no. It doesn't necessarily have to be physical. There are some other types of attraction for dating purposes. It can be sexual. It could be emotional. It could be that we're loneliness. It could be romantic. It could be financial. I think it could also be a person if you're very much so. It could be like a spiritual connection, or even a connection of you really are deeply connected on a level emotional, but at the same time you just really admire this person. So I don't think things have to be purely based on a physical, how the person physically presents themselves. I think there's layers to that. So I would say that there are different attractions. It doesn't just have to be physical.
Yeah, and typically though we think of that physical thing. But as we just said, there's a lot of other types of attractions. So that's why it's important to determine what kind of relationship you're looking for at the beginning of the relationship, as you mentioned earlier, Nikki, if we want the relationship to succeed. Still on the attraction stage, this is the stage usually where everything seems new and exciting. And usually the attraction stage, believe it or not, it lasts a few months. There's usually a lot of contact consisting of phone calls, texting, many dates, etc. And that's really to help the couple decide if they will move on to the next stage. Also, that's a clue for you folks that are just starting out. Also, if this person is not contacting you frequently, phone call, texting, many dates or whatever, that's a signal for you as far as how much they may or may not be interested in continuing with the relationship. So that was the attraction stage. The second stage in dating is the reality stage.
Well, I have to ask you a question.
Of course you do.
We're going through these stages. And kind of, are these stages that are something that you came up with, or is this something that is really kind of just a Google search away, if you know what I mean?
It's a as you know, Nikki,
Yes.
what we try to do is we
Okay.
want to provide current,
Yes.
relevant
Okay.
information, truthful information, factual information. So yeah, I relied on Mr.
Okay.
Google or Miss
Okay.
Google
Okay.
for a lot of this information.
Okay.
And so these particular stages I
Okay.
found on a few different reputable sites dealing with different aspects of dating. So
Okay, just
yes.
so that when people are listening to it, that they kind of know internally, maybe these are some things that I should be thinking of in the back of my mind.
Yes.
In the back of my mind.
Yes.
Okay.
And you you're bringing up another good point. It would be helpful to folks if they followed up on much of the information that we're providing to further help enlighten them as far
Yes.
as some of the things that we're talking about.
I agree.
And I'm not we not getting paid by Google.
No, we are not.
But
We are
but Google is
not.
an excellent resource for us. So.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so the second stage in dating is the reality stage, and as I said, the reality stage usually kind of sneaks up on us, and it might last a few months. This is the stage where we may start to see faults in each other. Imagine that.
I don't like that stage.
Yeah,
That's not a good stage.
Imagine faults.
I don't like that.
This doesn't mean we no longer like each other. But reality sets in after that initial attraction wears off, and we see some potential faults in each other. We may begin to see little habits or behaviors that we didn't notice in the attraction stage, and it bothers us. I got a question for you, Nikki. Do you think most couples verbalize these concerns at this time?
No, I don't think most people verbalize red flags to the person that they are dating. And
Unless
they are
they're
red
blaring.
flags.
Unless they're blaring.
Even
Knocking
if
them
they're-
upside the head, maybe.
I would say even if they're blaring.
Sometimes you're right.
Oftentimes,
Yeah.
even yellow flags
Yeah,
are,
yeah.
but the red flags, you would think that, we would maybe bring that up to people. But, oftentimes we just, we don't bring it up at the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I agree. And again, this is another one of those main reasons why many relationships fail. We don't make our concerns known at this time. Just because we make our concerns known, maybe there's an explanation why the person is doing what they're doing.
Or maybe they're working on it. Maybe they're working
Maybe
through
it's something they're fully aware of, and it's something that they're working on.
Yeah.
So it would be in our best interest to bring it up. Really, common sense would indicate that if the couple is noticing some behaviors or habits that are raising red flags, or as you say, even yellow flags, then maybe the relationship should fail at this stage.
But maybe due to the attraction stage,
especially if
overlapping.
it's physical or sexual.
Yes.
Yeah,
It could
you're
really
right.
hinder the reality of assessing some of these
Yes.
things. So it can get blurred
Yes.
vision.
Yes, absolutely. And really, the high divorce rate indicates that common sense is not followed in many cases at this stage.
That's true.
So then, if we're lucky enough to make it through stage 2, we're entering to stage 3 in dating. And stage 3 is the commitment stage. At this point, we have decided to date each other exclusively.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that term exclusive is, in this day and age, is very elusive and very interesting.
And you're right. And a lot of times, couples don't actually verbalize that.
Yes.
They don't say, "Hey, look, let's," they make the assumption.
Yes.
That we've been through stage
Yes.
1, stage 2.
Yes.
And so now we're in this commitment stage. And
Yes.
so since we're in stage 3, which is commitment, we dating exclusively, right? They don't say that. They just assume it in a lot of cases.
And then therein lies the problem.
There lies the problem. At this point, we're aware of the flaws in each other and are willing to accept these flaws as part of the other person. Now, if that's truly where you're at, That's great. I mean, if you truly recognize the flaws, and if you've truly accepted the flaws, and you're ready to continue, then that's great. But again, common sense is not applied many times in this stage. Many times, only one of the couple has committed to the requirements of the commitment stage. In other words, dating exclusively.
Very true. Very true.
Many cases.
Yes.
Many cases.
Yes. Many
and
cases.
again, it's not discussed.
That is true.
So if we're lucky enough to continue, then we enter the fourth stage in the dating process, which is the physical intimacy stage. Now, what are we talking about? Physical intimacy. What do you think we're talking about there? Are we talking about sex, you think? At this
No,
point?
we already said physical intimacy is not necessarily sexual.
Yeah, that's true. But usually that is where the sex thing kicks in too, though.
Okay, yes.
It'll kick in usually at the stage 4.
Okay.
The problem is, though, many times we enter the physical sexual part of the relationship during that first stage, which
That's
is
true.
what? The attraction stage.
Yeah, that's true.
And this can cause problems because it skips 2 critical stages in the dating process. This stage, as you said, isn't just physical sexual
Correct.
intimacy.
That is true.
But it goes much deeper into the realm of truly bonding each other and true love. Speaking of true love, I have this thing about that term, true love. For me, a sign of true love, if you want to determine whether or not you're expressing true love, or if someone is expressing true love to you, this is a sure litmus test for me. And I've told my daughter this too, my older daughter. If you truly love someone, and we're talking about it in a romantic sense, I mean, it can apply in other relationships too, but right now we're talking about it in a romantic sense. If you truly, truly love someone, in my mind, you should never tell that person no to a reasonable request or a reasonable explanation. I mean, if you're with someone and they never tell you no to a reasonable request or to a reasonable explanation, or expectation, chances are that's true love.
I think that is true. I would agree with that. What do you consider a reasonable request or expectation? I mean, I do agree to what, on the surface of what you're stating, that seems pretty reasonable. But what would you consider a reasonable request or expectation? Because I think we got people sometimes aren't very reasonable in their requests. So what would you consider reasonable?
Well, you're asking a very reasonable question right
we'll
now.
See.
You're asking a very reasonable question.
Okay.
And I agree with you. People's sense of what's reasonable and what's not, in many cases, is the reason we're doing this common sense thing,
yes,
right?
Correct.
Okay. So let me give you my example of some reasonable requests or reasonable explanations, and I want to give you the opportunity to add to that also.
Okay.
For example, honey, can you take out the trash? Can you do the dishes? Can you wash the clothes? Can you pick up some groceries? Can you get a job? Could you contribute to the household fairly? I think those are some reasonable requests. What do you think?
I do believe that those are very reasonable requests. Those are definitely not unreasonable requests, especially if you are physically and mentally able to do those.
Those are good points.
Because we have to say, hey, if a person just broke their leg and you're asking them to do the dishes, that's not a reasonable request at that time for that person. So I think
that's debatable. If they just broke their leg, can they stand? Can they sit and do the dishes? See, so
I think that's unreasonable. That's unreasonable.
See, there we go. two different people with
right.
two different.
I think that's unreasonable as a person.
Impressions of what's reasonable.
Why are you asking me? To me, in my mind, if I broke my leg, right? Why are you asking me in my mind, I'm thinking, does this person love me? Because why are they asking me to do something at this stage where, to me, that's unreasonable to ask me to do something?
You're absolutely right.
When I just broke my leg, that's an unreasonable request. Even though I could sit maybe down, but pain-wise or this or that, why would you put that on me?
We were sounding like a marital couple discussing on whether or not you need to do the dishes or not.
Well, no, we're discussing when it's reasonable. What's a reasonable request, and when something is. So, what would be to me, that would be unreasonable. If I broke my leg and somebody asked me to do the dishes, to me, that is an unreasonable request. If I am physically and mentally in a space where I can wash the clothes, pick up some groceries, do the trash, I think those are reasonable requests.
All good points.
So, so I think. Yeah, so you need to check yourself on what's reasonable or unreasonable. So you give me some unreasonable expectation, and one of those better be my wife, God forbid, broke her leg, and I asked her to do the dishes. That should be on your list as unreasonable.
Okay, we'll make that. All right, I'll give you that one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll give you that one.
Okay.
Some other examples of possibly being some unreasonable requests. And see, now what we're going to do here, we're going to have a problem because there's going to be a lot of men that's going to disagree with me on this one.
Okay.
They're going to disagree with me on this one.
Oh, wow.
But, request sex every day.
I agree. That's unreasonable.
I mean, and normally that'll probably be a man requesting sex from the woman.
That's true.
I mean, it's not that women won't request that of men, but that'll be very, very rare.
That's true.
But if anybody going to request sex on a daily basis, it's probably going to be a man requesting that of his lady.
That's true.
So, as a man, I have to say I think that would be an unreasonable request.
I agree.
Unless you know your lady and she's up to that.
That's true. Yes, that's true.
Expecting that any disrespect should be tolerated. I
agree.
think that's an unreasonable request or expectation. Not to contribute fairly in the household. Having controlling behavior. I think that's unreasonable. Expect that your partner should agree with all your requests. I think that's unreasonable. Tolerating infidelity, that's unreasonable. Lying, that's unreasonable. So those are just some of my ideas of what an unreasonable request is. And there are people who make these requests. A lot of you out there listening, you are some of those unreasonable people making these unreasonable requests. And I don't know, maybe you're not aware of it. It's just like with what Nikki said about me and the dishes. I wasn't aware that was an unreasonable request.
If your leg is broken.
If your leg is broken. See, I wasn't aware that was unreasonable. But Nikki checked me, and I'm inclined to agree with her. What do you think?
Yes, I think too, you do have to, just like we're able to kind of talk it out and determine, hey, maybe that's a little bit of an unreasonable request. Mm-hmm. So I think if you say no, like somebody you ask, hey, honey, can you do the dishes? And the person says no. I think it's a reasonable request to say, honey, can you maybe tell me why you can't do the dishes? Because maybe something's going on with that person that you don't know. Maybe they're in pain, but they haven't, discussed it with you or what have you. Instead of the person just stating no, maybe a little bit more insight. Hey, honey, I would love to do the dishes, but I'm in pain. So I think going a little bit beyond just yes or no. But if there is a no, and again, a reasonable request, and you should kind of know your partner of what they would consider reasonable. Mm-hmm. And then if that response is no, being able to have that dialogue of that person saying, hey, no, babe, I can't do it because I got to go pick up the kids right now. I can do it when I come back, or something like that. And I do understand we do live in a world where people say my no is the answer. And the no was the sentence, the no was the expectation. There is no follow-up needed. But I do believe in a loving relationship, in a caring relationship, in a relationship that should have mutual respect. And someone, again, is making a reasonable ask of you, a reasonable request of you. in a loving, caring relationship, I do think it's reasonable to take that extra step to say, hey, no, babe, I can't do it because of this. And at least that person knows you're not just shutting them down. There is a reason behind your no. And that person should then in turn, oh, okay, that's reasonable what you're stating. You're stating no, and I can understand why my reasonable request was denied at that state. So that's kind of what I think too. I think communication is the key. If you are going to say no, have a decent reason for that no. I believe that there should be maybe some follow up.
I agree. Well stated. This fourth stage, the which we're covering, the physical intimacy stage, it usually means we're opening up to each other, and we're letting our guards down also. Now, the fifth stage, the final stage of the dating process, this is the engagement stage. This is the stage where you ladies are looking forward to.
Okay.
Yeah. This is the stage where the couple has decided to commit to a lifelong partnership and future together in marriage.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
I think we did go over why people date, but does it necessarily have to be marriage? Because can we get to that stage and just say we are going to live out our life committed to each other, we are going to be exclusive, but for whatever reason, they choose not to legally get married, but they choose to live their life out together. They are committed. They are going to be monogamous. They are going to do all those things, but for whatever reason, they make the choices they both are in agreement. We do not want to get married, but we want to spend the rest of our lives together. Would that be okay?
I think you're bringing up a very, 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 very interesting point. And I have to be honest with you, I hadn't thought about that. But because my mind works so swiftly,
yes,
I have had an opportunity to think about what you just said, and I have an excellent answer for you.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of couples who do just what you just said.
Yes.
Now, let's remember that we're talking about the dating stage.
Yes.
And the fifth stage here is the one that you're questioning, which is the engagement stage.
Yes. So you're literally saying engagement. I'm getting down on my hands and knees. I'm proposing to you. So when you say engagement, you literally mean an engagement and not an engagement.
And it says marriage too. We said together in marriage.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. But in your scenario, what I would think is there's such a thing that's called common law marriage.
Yes.
People may not necessarily call it common law marriage.
That is true.
But the couple, to me, that you're talking about, they're not, if they actually get to that point where they're committed to a lifelong partnership.
Yes.
For me, it doesn't have to be in that official marital ceremony.
Yes. Because I know you said engagement, but in my mind, I'm thinking, hey, maybe you never get to that stage, but you feel you're engaged because you are engaged in the sense you're committed.
Lifelong. That's how you're looking at it. I agree with you.
Yes.
And that's you brought up a very, very good point.
Yes.
Because there are people out there that are in that very situation that you're talking about who don't want to formally commit to a marriage.
Yes.
Because that's what we're talking about here.
Yes.
Is formally committing to a marriage.
Formally committing to
and
a
what
marriage.
you're bringing up is that a commitment that's not necessarily formal.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I agree with you. And that's a very good point.
Formal in the sense of legal.
Right.
Not because it can be formal.
Right.
That everybody knows this is my life partner. This is the love of my life.
But now, see, because my mind is working so swiftly.
Boy.
Yeah, exactly. My mind is working so swiftly. You're bringing up another very good point. And this is the point. If you decide, especially a female, if you decide to live with a guy, right, a man, and you've been living with him the last 20, 30, 40 years, and let's just say y'all have accumulated some stuff, which is probably what's going to happen, and
things go south?
Well, yeah, things go south.
Okay.
So what happened to all that stuff y'all accumulated? How is there a, as Judge Judy would say, is there a legal framework to help you folks fairly distribute that stuff?
I think if you make a decision, a commitment with someone, you guys make the decision to be life partners, but not legally, right? Not legally. Go down that road, because you brought up a good point. Then I think you have to think. You got to think ahead of time. And I think we live in a world where, hey, you can write this up. You can say, hey, legally, if we decide to split up, legally you are entitled. You go to an attorney. They have estate planning. There's estate planning. You can do estate planning because parents do estate planning for their kids.
Right.
So you can do estate planning in the sense of stating, hey, if this doesn't go in the way, or God forbid the person passes away.
Right.
We're not, the person passes away.
Good point.
So you can have things set up in the case of if we decide to go our separate ways, or God forbid this person passes away, this is mine, this is yours. And it may seem petty, or it may seem, who knows, but you can have it down to who gets the toaster. Something as basic as simple as that. Bank accounts, cars, all those different types of things. You can still have an illegal framework so that if
why
things
not get married? If you're gonna go through all of that stuff, why not just get married? I mean, I'm not pushing you one way or the other, but I'm just saying you're bringing up some very, very good points. Very good points. But I'm thinking that if you had that piece of paper, that little marriage certificate, marriage license, that's going to take care of all that stuff you just said. You don't have to go to a lawyer and make up these individual things. Now, that's just, a
side note.
That's just a side note. We just giving y'all some things to think about, but they're very important things to think about.
Yes, I think you're right. When if you do live with someone, and then, Judge Judy, it is true. If you do technically go your separate ways, how is that going to look? Because you are going to have stuff that you have accumulated together. And how is that legally going to look? And those are definite things that you have to assess. I just think that we need to, be a little we're living in 2025, and people are, doing things a little bit different. It's different. And I know normally this is a natural progression of how things go, engagement and what that looks like. But I want to make sure that we are looking at couples that go through all these stages except the engagement stage. And some of these couples,
well, they still go through the engagement stage. They just don't go through the marital part of it.
The marital part of it. And so what, for those couples that are more, for whatever reason, they don't want to get married. Everybody has their reason.
We don't want to put everybody in a box.
No, we do not. And so trying to be mindful and respectful of those people who decide to soulmates or life partners or whatever label, or maybe no label at all, but they just live their life the way that they live it, making sure that we include those people. But I do think you brought up a good point legally, how that would look if you didn't have things in order. And again, you did bring up a good point about why not get married, but that's a whole nother discussion for a whole nother day.
Okay. All right. Okay. So those were the 5 stages, and another area I want to touch on here is, and I've shared this with some folks, and in my book, on Relationship Pocket Guide written for women by men, and feedback I've gotten from a lot of ladies, they don't like this, they don't agree with it. But
wait, what did you say that title? I think you messed up your own title.
A Relationship Pocket Guide written for women by men.
Okay. Fair enough.
Relationship. Don't get the common sense one mixed up.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
Yeah. So I through my research and just life's observations, I've determined that if a woman is single around the age of let's say 40 to 45 years old, and if they're not involved in a serious relationship at that time that is destined for marriage in the near future, the chances are she'll probably not meet and marry an eligible man unless one of the following occur.
Okay.
She meets a recently divorced eligible man.
Okay.
she meets a recently widowed eligible man,
Okay.
or she takes she takes an eligible married man from his wife.
Which is
That's
wrong.
Yeah, that's wrong. We're not
That is
advocating that.
absolutely not.
But I'm just going through the scenario of what her chances would be of finding an eligible man. And speaking of an eligible man, um, like I said, I'm sure a lot of folks won't agree with my observation, but for me, now this is a man speaking, so you can
Okay.
correct me at the end of this, but
Fair enough.
I'm thinking some of the things that a woman would look for when determining what an eligible man is. We talked about attraction. You would like for him to be somewhat educated. Don't necessarily have to have a PhD.
Sure,
But
sure.
you want to let him at least have a high school diploma
That's
or even
true.
a GED.
Yes, yes.
Financially secure.
Right.
Again, don't have to be a billionaire or millionaire, but at least be a hundredaire.
Right.
Thousandaire,
I
maybe.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
He's a given person, personable, respects you, and he shows that respect. Shares your values, sincere, sense of humor. But he don't make fun of you, right? He don't make you the brunt of jokes.
Correct.
He's an effective communicator. He listens. He supports your career, thoughtful and romantic, spends time with you. Can you add to any of those things? I mean, those are just some general thoughts that I have on what a female might consider to be an attractive man. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that's good. I think another thing is I love the Lord. I'm a Christian. I understand everybody is not. But I do think that should be taken in consideration, because I think whether you're agnostic or atheist or Buddhist or Hindu, I think that spiritual should be able to be, put in there as well. Again, because I do think that that's very important to people, eligibility, if especially if you're looking for, a lifelong partner to be aligned on a spiritual.
Yeah. So ladies, if you agree with half of the qualities of a good man we cited, here's what I'd like you to do. Write down the names of 3 single heterosexual men that are over 40 to 45 years of age that that is not recently divorced or widowed, that would meet those qualifications. Okay? Write down 3, just 3, not 60, but 3 single heterosexual men that are over 40 to 45 years of age, that let me do it this way too. Let's make it even easier. Get with some of your friends. And together come up with 3 names of some eligible men 40 to 45 years old that meet those eligible qualifications that we listed. The second reason as to why I think single women 40 to 45 years old will probably not meet and marry an eligible man is the overall sex ratio for unmarried adults. The overall sex ratio for unmarried adults in the U.S. is about 90 men to every 100 women. Something else to think about is almost a third of adult single men live with their mama and their daddy. They live with their parents. Single men are much more likely to be unemployed, financially fragile, and to lack of a degree, financially fragile to compared to their partner. Single men earn less than in past years. Single women, you guys have caught up past us in a lot of ways. Y'all make more money now than we do. So those are just some factors that aren't appealing to eligible single women. Your thoughts?
I think those are all good, solid facts that you brought up. I mean, I think there's a plethora more, and I think we all have various thoughts of success or what we want in life and various things. But I think that those are some common basic good points that you brought up.
Yeah. And I know you should just tap me on my shoulder because I lose track of time.
Yes.
And we kind of are moving on here. So we got one last area that we want to just probably, we're going to go through this a little quickly. We might pick it back up at some later point. But this is on the area of living together, and I think we kind of basically touched on that. We kind of already talked about that, about that final stage and the commitment and that type of thing. So what we were going to cover, I think we'll save this for another session.
I think so too. I think because I think that's a whole kit and caboodle in and of itself, and yes, I do agree. I do agree with that.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, Miss Nikki. All right. So I think we kind of covered the areas that we needed to touch on. So it's about time to bring this session to a close, but we would really love for you to give us some feedback. Leave your thoughts, your comments. You can leave it at our email, which is dnahardwiredpodcast@gmail.com. That's dnahardwiredpodcast@gmail.com. Or we also have a Facebook page. Just look up DNA Hardwired podcast on common sense. You can leave us a line there too. So this is Nikki and Pop dropping the mic on this session. Common sense turned upside down. Any last thoughts, Nikki?
My only last thoughts is love each other, be kind to each other, show compassion toward each other, and that's it. That's all. We out. Peace out. Peace out.
All right. Thank you. We'll see you on the next episode.
Think it through, people.